Jennifer, how are you?
Great. How are you, Keith?
Good. Do you prefer I call you Jen or Jennifer?
Probably Jen.
Jen.
Easier.
Okay, perfect.
More efficient.
Yeah, cut down on the work.
That's right.
Reduce my workload in
Yes.
half. Thank you so much. Well, it's so great to have you here
You
today.
too. It's great
Thank
to
you
be here.
again. I appreciate you always making time for me.
I love to make time for you. Thanks for making time for me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I thought we'd do like a little short podcast on civility.
Great.
Okay. I think in today's climate, I think the media really kind of emphasizes or stresses moments in which people aren't very civil to each other. I mean, the public discourse within politics, within
Right.
sports, entertainment, there's continues to be this focus on people not being kind to each other. And I think it's kind of like a little cop-out, you know, with saying, well, this is what the people want. You
Right.
know, our
It
ratings
sells.
demonstrate it. Yeah, exactly. Like, really? That's our threshold?
Right.
Really? That's what we're resorting to? That's what matters? Okay. That's one way to live.
Right.
Right? I think Wayne Dyer says it best. You know, you can hostile world, peaceful world. Same world.
Love that.
Right? So I'm choosing the peaceful world.
Nice.
Didn't always contribute to it though. just full self-disclosure, full disclosure. I didn't always contribute to it.
None of us have always contributed to it.
I've gotten better over the years.
Yes,
so.
you have. I
Yes.
hope I have too.
Oh yeah, you've been extremely kind and civil to me. So I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. What does being civil mean to you?
That's a great question. So I think not only treating people just with basic respect, right? But also really trying to find people's strengths
Yes.
and help them to be their best,
Right.
And to appreciate them for where they're showing up, how they're showing up, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the same for me. I see it the exact same way in that it's being respectful, it's being kind, and it's simple things. You know, when I did a podcast on gender and kindness a few months ago with Julian Melson, who's also one of our Mayo Clinic colleagues, and we
Everyone
talked,
should watch that one.
oh, thank you. I know Julian is fantastic in that. And he talked about what a difference a smile makes.
Yes.
You know, that is a civil act.
Right.
I think not talking over people,
Yes.
you know, and letting them have an opportunity to really express themselves and to be a good listener
Yes.
is an act of civility. And these are things that I've gotten better, you know, with over the years. And a lot of people have taught me that. One of my friends who taught me to be a good listener or reminded me, his name is Scott Erdang. And he's really funny when he says it. And he says, I do more listening than I do talking. You know, I only say something when it's going to be worth, you know, it brings value. Other than that, I just listen. And from a selfish standpoint, you get the other guy to say what his position is first, and then you have an opportunity to respond to it. And I've just really learned to be a better listener over the years. You're a very good listener.
I learned it from you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So have you always been a person, well, I think you already established that you haven't always practiced civility, but have there been instances which you look back and you say, wow, I was not civil at all back then?
Yeah, I'm thinking. You know, I think, well, for one thing too, I should disclose, I was a communication major, right?
Oh, yes.
I have a couple degrees in communications. So I think from a pretty early age, I knew I was interested in communication. So when you asked me to talk about this is right up my alley.
Right.
So I'm thinking that, you know, for me, trying to think of some time I feel like I really went uncivil. I think, you know, there was one time at work when I was really frustrated because an error had happened that, you know, affected a whole bunch of us. And I think at that time, I have this one trick that I will talk about.
Oh yeah.
That helped me.
You know we love hacks.
I know, this
around
is a
here.
little hack.
Yeah.
But at that time, I remember I just said, I need 5 minutes. And I just walked away. And I think for me, that felt really upsetting. And I think people who know me, who know I'm usually pretty engaging and supportive, like for me just to like walk away from them and tell them I'm walking away from this situation for 5 minutes because I need to like not lose my mind.
Right.
That felt like I was being uncivil, in my
Right.
perception and in my behavior of how I usually would treat people.
Yeah, but I mean, what was the alternative? Would you have lost it on everybody?
I would have lost my mind.
So I think you made the right move
Probably
there.
cried my head off.
I think you made the right move. My friend Jamie Sunshine is one of the kindest people I know, and she has this thing that she's also shared with me is where she's like, when those moments come up, she says, "I'm just going to take space,
Right.
to allow myself to get grounded again, to get rooted in the present moment, to remember what's really important,
Right.
and then I can come back and revisit this, and I'll be my best self."
Yes.
And she does it really good with her children too.
Oh,
When they're acting out, she's like, "You know what? I think you need to go take space."
we love that, Jamie.
I know, right?
Some positive parenting.
It's awesome.
Yes.
And I think those are some of the things that I've really gained from people that have taught me how to be more civil. There are some instances that I have not been civil. I didn't really recognize it until I watched this TED Talk by Christine Parath, and we'll leave that in the show notes. But it's a great
It is
TED
great.
Talk about civility in the workplace and the impact of incivility in the workplace.
Yeah.
But one of the things she talked about was how, as a speaker or an authority figure in a certain situation, that if you call somebody out publicly without that being something that people are expecting, and even if they are, if you do so, you run the risk of creating a space of incivility
Right.
and a negative impact to everyone. So back in the early days of ToBeRe, I had this thing about being on time, right? And if you weren't on time, the context or the agreement that we all had and shared is that you acknowledge being late, and then you apologize to the whole group about that, being late and what the impact of delaying the workout, delaying the session and things like that, which I think is okay. Let me tell you where I crossed the line. When I publicly said, like, "Listen, why are you late?" And the way I said it, the tone, the tenor of it. And then I called them out and I wouldn't drop it, beating a dead horse and over again. And I really didn't think it was a problem until she referenced this in the TED Talk. And I called my friend Matt, who sent me the TED Talk initially, and I said, "Matt, remember a couple of years ago, man, I owe you an apology right now because
That's
I called
awesome.
you out publicly." And Matt's the kind of cool cat. It's like, "Oh, KJ, don't worry about it, man. It's okay. It's all good." But I needed that example from that TED Talk to go back and look at my own behavior so that I could address it and so that I can make sure that it doesn't occur again.
Right.
So I'm really, really mindful of it. What were you
And
gonna say, Sam?
kudos to you for years later
Oh, thank
going
you.
back and making that right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying. I'm a work in
That's
progress.
awesome. We all are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, how does incivility affect you? Because in the TED Talk, she also shared about how it not only affects the person who
Right.
is on the receiving end
Right.
of unkind behavior,
Right.
but all the people that witness it and observe it, they're also
Right.
affected by it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that that's something that we really don't focus enough on in the workplace. And I mean, even in I think this TED Talk, which was excellent, she really talked about workplace and how it affects productivity, and even in very dramatic examples like, mortality.
Yes.
So I think that's important to talk about, but also in our personal relationships too, right? So if you've got this thing stewing
Right.
that's taking up half your emotional energy, right? Because maybe you weren't even on the receiving end, but you witnessed
Right.
someone else getting, embarrassed or just browbeat, in front of you, and whether or not you were able to be, speak up for that person or not, or comfort that person or not. These things it's easy to ruminate on something that we just saw.
Absolutely.
And think, what could I have done? What would I have done? What should I do next time? And it's just taking up so much energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you can just be kind in the first place.
Right, right.
And I think if you commit to creating a workspace as well as a home
Right.
or your relationships with others, that, hey, we're committed to being civil to each other.
Right.
If we have a disagreement, this is going to be the template by which we go about addressing the issue in a very kind and loving way. That's been super key for me. I think we can end the show with a few things that we do that help nurture civility.
Right.
So one of the things that I do with all the groups that I have the privilege of being a part of, if we're doing some kind of activity together, is the two most common words that you're going to hear in that group is going to be thank you. And it's for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is if you are being coached or corrected on some kind of form or some kind of process, instead of the person who is receiving that feedback saying, I'm not good enough, I did this wrong, they are making me feel shameful about how I performed. When you say thank you, it means that you are open.
Right.
It opens you up.
Right.
And it tells the person who's giving the feedback that you're open to hearing it,
Right.
that you want to do better, you want to perform at your best. And so it does those two things. And obviously, thank you is an expression of gratitude. And I found that to be one of the most powerful things that you can do to encourage civility. Another thing is that smiling. It's so simple. I used to never smile. I did talk about why I didn't smile for a lot of years, and it was, I don't want to go into that, but there's a lot of shame about my thick lips and a 14-year-old girl at the time when I was 14 also. First girl I ever kissed. She made a statement about my lips. I made it mean I wasn't good enough. And for the next 20 plus years, I never smiled. I know, sad, right?
That is sad.
It's sad. And so as a result, I didn't lead with a smile most of my life, but once I overcame that perception and that hurt and the story that I created about my lips, now I smile all the time. Like I'm
Good.
bringing it, right?
You are.
And so I think a smile can be a very simple act that encourages civility. Do you have any, tips or things that you would like to say that encourage civility also in the workplace and your relationships?
Right, and I think this is really simple, but just looking for the positive, right? So you look for that. Instead of looking for like, what did someone forget to do or what did they not do
What's
the way I
missing? What's
wanted?
wrong?
Yes, just to say, oh, thanks for doing that. Thanks for being proactive about this. Thanks for
Yes.
thinking through this. Anything.
Right.
People, I think people appreciate that you respect the work that they're doing.
I totally agree.
Right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for this short little conversation on civility.
Yeah.
And thank you for the civility and kindness you bring to my life.
Hey, before we go,
Yes.
can I share my one hack with you?
Please
Okay.
do.
So this is really quick. So if I start to feel myself getting riled up, like where I want to like maybe say something snarky or just not respectful, I will often. It's harder for me in that moment to just put the brakes on. But if I think of maybe the butterfly effect
Right.
of that person, they're going to go home, right? Maybe, and I think about like maybe they have a 3-year-old child, right?
Right.
Maybe they have a puppy. And the puppy, they come running to the door. They're so happy to see that person. They're innocent. They're full of love, right? And that person's going to walk through the door and just be so upset and not be able to be present, right?
Right.
For these innocent
Yes.
bystanders,
Right.
right? Because I exploded, right?
Exactly.
So then I think, okay, if not for myself, if not for the person that I'm talking to, I got to think about that child, that puppy who's at home, and that gives me such a visceral response
Yes.
that I can just then be calm
Absolutely.
and be peaceful.
I like it.
Because I don't want to be the person who's like yelling at the child or the
Right.
puppy, right?
I think that's powerful, and that's such a mature way to be responsible for how your actions impact others.
Right.
I think a lot of people have gotten so used to just a knee-jerk reaction that they are so identified with their thoughts that it's hard to even take a moment of space to step back. And I think if we go back to what Jamie Sunshine said, which was like the first thing we do, like I'm hot right now. Wait, I'm gonna take space.
Right. Yes.
And I think that's another way to begin.
I agree.
To practice
That's
more
a great
civility.
way. Great
Right.
way just to recognize where you're at too.
Where you feeling?
Just
Yeah. You
noting.
Feeling, yes.
Yes.
Noting. Thank you so much.
It's great to see you.
You too. Thank you.